Okay, we are recording for the three languages from Grimm's Fairy Tales, story 27, I believe it is, for, at least this version of it. Um, so I actually had to break my rule for this one, and I did look it up a little bit. Um, just because its ending made me wonder if it was actually supposed to be connected to any real person. At least the Wikipedia thing doesn't suggest that, though there are similarities, apparently. But I don't feel like digging too deeply into that. I'll get to it. So, story is you got an old count who has a son. The son is stupid, and it said he can't learn anything. Not necessarily sure if we would take that as like he's dyslexic or something like that. Or you know some other thing we now have a word for that back then was just they were stupid. Which does also remind me of one thing to mention. Dumb isn't necessarily stupid. Dumb is referring to the inability to speak at all. So it, but I think it's because I think it's still a little different from mute though. I don't quite remember, but dumb actually does, in a more traditional sense, have a definition that is a specific condition. It's not just you're a moron kind of thing. Which moron actually is stupid, we're honest. Anyhow, so yeah, the father, though, doesn't want to completely give up on him yet, and decides, okay, I'm going to send him off to a master and let him be taught for a year and see what he learns. Comes back, okay, son. What have you learned? I've learned what the dog says when he barks. Uh-huh. Okay, let's try this again with that master. Year goes by. Comes back. Tell me, son, what have you learned? I've learned what the birds say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, son. I love you. We're gonna try this again. One more master for 1 year. But know this, if you come back and you've learned nothing, you're no longer my son. Go. Year goes by, comes home. Son, what have you learned? I've learned what the frogs say when they croak. Servants, this man is no longer my son. Take him out in the forest and kill him. Why he goes to that extreme, I'm not entirely sure, except, just the whole great dishonor on him, but I would think that the whole, disowning him might be enough of that. In any case, they take him out, have pity on him, and, just run away. There's a deer. Take out his eyes and its tongues. We'll give that to the old man. He'll never know the difference. I think you may be able to tell a deer's tongue from a human tongue, but regardless. Boy runs off. And, obviously, he actually did learn these languages. Those weren't empty answers. He did learn these languages, and so he has the ability to understand dogs, birds, and frogs. So we're going to see those come into play. First, it's the dogs. He comes across a castle. Well, it should be a town and a castle, but in any case, comes across that and is like, I'm tired. Is there somewhere I can spend the night? And they're like, well, there's a tower over there, but be warned, there's a pack of wild dogs there. We occasionally have to throw somebody to them so they eat them instead of terrorizing the rest of us. So if you don't mind that, go ahead. Dude's like, can you give me some food to feed them instead? All right, we can do that. Gives them some food. He goes there, and they don't bark the entire night. It even says. Well, they are quiet. I think it did say that they are quiet the entire night. Hang on, let me check on that. When he went inside, the dogs did not bark at him, but wagged the tails quite amicably around him, ate what he set before them, and did not hurt one hair on his head. But it's like, how'd you do that? Oh, well, they told me why. Why they do that, why they terrorize the area. They're actually bewitched that there's a great treasure underneath the tower and they're guarding it. So, yeah, if we can get rid of the treasure, which I've also learned how to do safely, if we get rid of that, they'll go. And it actually, I would describe it as not like they just left, but vanished, even. And he does manage to dig up the the treasure, bunch of gold, and it's also the count whose castle it is, who would be running town and all that. It also said, like, if this is true, I will adopt you as my son. So, hey, he's got a dad again. He's a count now. Well, young count. So, that's nice and all. And then he starts having this feeling, I want to visit Rome. That's fair. He's in Switzerland. Bit of a trek, but, on his way there. Comes across a pond or something like that. There's frogs there. And he hears what they're saying. And I want to actually see how it's put exactly. I remember he's saddened by it. I just want to get the exact thing. Was sitting croaking. He listened to them, and when he became aware of what they were saying, he grew very thoughtful and sad. I don't think that this is a sad in the, like, crying. Well, he may be crying, but not in that kind of sad kind of way. But sad more. I'm just trying to think. There is a better word. I just cannot think of it. All I can think of is like sober, as in serious. So melancholy would be here, where it's just kind of down. But he's not sad, like weeping out of sadness kind of thing. But I wish I could remember what the other word is. Oh man, but I think that would be it. That would be it. That it's almost a like woe on me for what I have learned, what is coming. Because also part of what he learned is that the Pope has died. Which I find kind of interesting because dating the when I'm recording this video, that was yesterday. Yeah. That's a little interesting. Anyhow. And by the way, I do not know the time period that this story would have come from because it refers to there's great debate over how to select the next Pope. It's like, well, what's going to be happening potentially actually when this video comes out. I'm not sure. I'd have to work out the timeline. I don't feel like doing that at the moment. But it's the cardinals that vote and have to do that. But this is like, no, we need some great sign, some miraculous sign. That's how it's going to be. So that this story could either originate much older, like predating that process, or it could be something else. I don't know. And the Catholic Church, and with popes in the Vatican, there is some weird history there. There is some weird history. Anyway, and this is also why I actually wanted to look it up. But I'll come to that, because when he gets to Rome, 2 doves land on his shoulders, and they take that as the miraculous sign, meaning he is to be Pope. And this is also, it does say what the frogs had said when he was going by, that he is to be the Pope, the next Pope. And this did put him in a melancholy mood because he didn't believe in himself. He had such doubts that he would be worthy of that. And indeed, it even describes like he would have said no, except that the 2 doves, because he knows what they're saying, tell him, no, say yes, accept this. And then he does accept it, anointed all that, and now it's time for him to sing a mass, and he's like, I don't know what to say. But the doves are still there and like, don't worry, we'll tell you what to say. So yeah, I had to look it up because I was just curious. Maybe there was a Pope selected in something of a manner where it's like some of the history of this would line up with an actual Pope. But looking it up, and this is just the Wikipedia thing, which isn't necessarily that, not necessarily going to be that complete or that accurate. It is Wikipedia, and let's face it, some of that stuff is intentionally not accurate because people don't want accuracy in some cases. Anyway, but the ending of the story harks back to similar legendary tales behind historical papacies, such as Pope Innocent III and Pope Sylvester II. Or in fictional tales such as Gregorius the Good Sinner, which I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar with it. It also says that the anointment of the papacy by the sign of a dove also harkens to Pope Fabian of the 3rd century. See, that I could believe back then would have been they were looking for such signs as opposed to cardinals voting. Yeah. It also mentions in here that with dogs, frogs, and birds, you have the language of the earth, language of the water, and language of the air. So, three elements of existence, if you will. But yeah. I'm just trying to think. Is this just a story, or is there a moral to it? I feel, yeah, no, but you do have to. There is a moral here, which is you can still achieve even through misery. I mean, think about it. He was considered stupid for his life. His father, who loves him clearly, for 3 years arranged for him to study, to hopefully make something of himself. The father also did not understand that he was learning things and then disowned him. So it's like, that's really bad. That's really miserable. But that also put him in the situation to then help that town by freeing them of the wild dogs, and then put him on the path to becoming Pope. So, in basically things can still work out well, even if it seems terrible now. It might take a while, but they can still work out. So there is a moral there. And by the way, I am also going to be a little biased for that because I kind of have that experience in my own life. Not to the degree of this story, but it's the idea of a lot of misery, but then things actually working out fairly well. Still kind of miserable, but it has gotten better. I guess the short version there is just... I mentioned before, I think I've mentioned before, I've only ever been chronically unemployed and underemployed. But the job I have now, which I've actually had for like 4 years now, I think, coming up on that, I think, at least 4 or 5 years, something like that. Some of the things that I do there, the only reason I am able to do them, the only reason the company is able to do these things that I have shown them how to do, is because of being unemployed and doing various things. Like some of it I learned from writing the books. I'm completely serious. And I only had time to write the books because of being unemployed. So it's one of those right time, right place, right person. Very much so, because I had skills that I developed just for that, just for these purposes. But then it was like within a year of my being there, and I was hired for something else. Within a year of my being there, it's like, yeah, we can solve this problem this way, and it is a critical component, critical feature of one of our projects. It's actually like that kind of stuff does happen. Not necessarily to the degree that is described in the 3 languages, but still, it's that stuff does happen. So yes, I am going to be biased. I'm going to see that in a story when maybe that's not exactly what they mean for it to be there, but I do see it there. And also I can say, yeah, that stuff does happen. So it does happen. I'm just trying to... I guess there might also be an element of even the stupid, that there's still a value to them. There's still a place for them in the world, which sounds really condescending. I don't mean it that way. But that essentially the father was wrong to cast him out. The father was not wrong in trying to get him to learn. That's fine. That's good even. But to cast him out like that was wrong. It led to good things, but it was still wrong for him to do that. I'm just trying to think, because is there anything directly concerning the young count's, the young man's humility there, his doubt? I mean, kind of. I mean, humility it's a complicated virtue, because on the one hand, yes, it is good to be humble, but on the other hand, you can't overdo it. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm the most humble person there is. It's like, well, no, that's... But I mean where you can have too much humility turning into doubt, self-doubt, can be very dangerous. Because then you end up turning away from things you shouldn't. I mean, it's like, he had doubts if he could be Pope. Now, he did have the doves telling him to go with it anyway, go for it anyway, and the frogs telling him as well. So it's like, he had that going for him, but we don't always have something like that. So it is that's why humility, it is a tricky virtue to try to have. Yeah. That isn't... I mean, I guess it would be, with this story, trying to tell it to a child, it would be at least opening up the opportunity to have that discussion with a child or an adult if you're sharing it with them. That, yeah, I mean, it's humility is better than arrogance, but it is still it shouldn't be the point of completely doubting yourself. That, you should still do things even if you don't believe that it's going to be of meaning to others, even if you don't think it's going to be of value to others, even if you don't think that you're going to be able to achieve much with it. That it will be all that great. It still is that's not a reason not to try. I mean, this YouTube channel is an example of that. Technically, all my books are examples. I mean, it's like lots of things that I know in my life are examples of that, and you can probably think of some in yours where it's like, nah, I'm still gonna do it anyway. So yeah, but it is. How many people out there haven't written the book that they could write just because they have too much doubt, that like they're overly humbled with their own abilities. And to be fair, I mean, yeah, maybe your spelling isn't that good, but you got spell check. Maybe your grammar isn't that good. There's grammar check. There's also one thing I find interesting, and I'm saying this to encourage anyone who has an idea for a story but doubts that they can write it. I find it very odd that it seems there are people who can competently speak, can competently hold a conversation, but can't write. And if it's what you have to fall back to, write the thing out, but then read it out loud to yourself. And if you're realizing that you're saying it differently, start writing down what you're saying. Like if you're realizing that what you're saying sounds better than what you wrote, then probably go with that. Yeah, because I mean, that's also just legitimately, I am confused by people that they cannot write a coherent sentence, but they can have a coherent conversation. But that confuses me, but as I was saying, it's like, then take advantage of your ability to hold a conversation to correct what you wrote. Yeah, I mean, it's like, still, go ahead and do that work. And it can be slow. You don't have to think, oh, well, if I want to be an author, then I have to write this thing really quick. No, you don't. You can take your time. You can take years on it. I mean, I'm not even sure how long it took me to write The Children of Gifts. Now, true, it's the longest book I've written, but still, is that probably like 2.5 years, I could believe, for that one. What I'm currently writing, I'm actually coming up on a year long for that. I'm still not done with the first draft. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It'll probably be in... If I had to guess, and I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. I think it's safe to say I'll finish the draft before the end of the year. Hopefully sooner than that, and I'll have already started editing, or at least more largely speaking, the editing process, because some other things I want to be doing at that same time. That's a different discussion. But it's still possible that, yeah, that would be like a year or two away before I'd finish it. Nothing wrong with that. And it's also, crap. I'm only thinking about something I was once told, but I'm not sure how accurate it is. The Music Man, that musical that's really, really good. And definitely recommend. I don't have it in my collection, though. At some point I will get it. The person who wrote that, he spent years on that, perfecting it, honing it, constantly agonizing over single words. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but I'm just saying that if you want to take time, go right ahead. Masters take time to get it perfect, and if you just need the time, even if you're not a master, still, spend the time. It'll be worth it, probably. Because when you're finished, you know what that is? That's yours. That is something only you could have written. No one else can write your story but you. No one else will ever make those word choices for that story but you. So if you think the story's a good idea, if you like the idea of the story, you're the only one that can write it. So if it is to exist, you have to do it. And I'll even add this, even though that was a final thought, and hopefully that's enough. But for anyone thinking that, oh, but there are so many other stories like it, it's like, yeah, so? Yeah, there are plenty of stories that are very similar to each other. So what? That didn't stop any of the people writing them from writing them. Why should it stop you? And similarly, if it's I don't want to write, you wanted to try doing a YouTube channel. If you got the technology for it, go ahead and do it. Because, again, it's only you that would ever say the things in the way you're saying them. Only you have your voice. So, if you want it out there, you're the one that has to do it then. So, do it. If it takes time, let it take time. See you next time for Hansel and Gretel. This will be fun.